Hey guys, it's Becky. Welcome back to my channel. I have another homeschooling video for you guys, and this was kind of birthed out of some questions that I typically get and have gotten consistently on my channel over the last 10 years. I have been on YouTube for 10 years. We've been homeschooling for 10 years, I think now. So some of the questions I get the most are about a homeschool schedule, a homeschool routine, what we do we do every subject every day, how do we set up a good flow for the kids. So I thought that would be something I would be able to share with you guys in today's video after having one child now who has graduated our homeschool high school and has also since graduated college. And then now I'm down to one child who is in 8th grade this year. She's 13. So learned quite a few things over the years with both girls, going from 2 kids to 1 kid. Definitely a little bit of a difference there as well. So I think these 5 tips will be really helpful to you if you are especially new to homeschooling and you're trying to figure out your schedule, your routine, the flow that you want to have. But even if you've been homeschooling for a while and you're just finding it really hard to manage the day-to-day of what subjects you do, how often you do them, when you do them, things like that, I think you'll find this video helpful. So if you want to hear my 5 tips for creating the perfect homeschool routine for you, then stay tuned. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the question I get the most when it comes to a homeschool schedule, and that is, do you do every subject every day? And the answer is sometimes. That's the goal for us, especially with an older child. Now when they were younger and littler, you know, there were definitely days, weeks, months, years that we didn't necessarily do every subject every day, and it wasn't even the goal to do that. Now we're to the point, and we've been at this point for quite a while, where she's old enough, and I feel like she's definitely, you know, got her core subjects down really well. She reads really well. A lot of those things that you're working with in the beginning that maybe take more time, like learning to read or learning to spell or learning to write, those things take a lot of time, and they should take, therefore, precedence over some of the other things. But now that she's older and reads really well, obviously she can write, she can type, all these things, you know, I don't really see any reason why, from that standpoint of like her ability, that we shouldn't do every subject every day. But that doesn't mean that you have to. You have to decide what's right for you. You have to decide how much you're assigning each day. If you're assigning a lot of reading or a lot of writing projects, then maybe you don't want to, or it's not realistic for your child to do every subject every day. So you really have to gauge that out and decide, you know, the amount of work that they are expected to do, combined with that child's ability, if they're able to do every subject every day. But in our homeschool, and for the last few years for sure, every subject every day is the goal. But there are plenty of times when that doesn't happen, where we're busy or we have an appointment, or maybe we sleep in too long and we don't get an early start like we want to. There's all different reasons why you may not be able to get every subject every day, which is one reason why we prioritize core subjects even now. Like I mentioned, you know, when she was younger, we prioritized learning to read, learning to spell, learning to write. And even though she can do all those things now, we still prioritize what I think are the most important subjects. So grammar, writing, math. Those are like our non-negotiable. If we're not going to get anything else done today, if I can get those things done and have her get those things done, then I feel like it's a successful day. So I think being flexible and understanding that you don't have to do every single subject every day for a variety of reasons and for a variety of lengths of time is really helpful and really freeing when you stop trying to cram every single subject every single day. My second tip is to not plan too far in advance. That's something that I did in the beginning, especially with my oldest, and I thought I had to plan out, like, even a couple weeks was honestly too far in advance for us, because one day something wouldn't go as planned and the entire lesson plan after that was messed up. I mean, and I did this repeatedly before I realized it's not working for us to plan 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or anything beyond that in advance. Really, even a couple days in advance, I typically don't do. I have a lesson, I don't even want to call it a lesson planner, but I have like a little schedule. I'll try to remember to insert a picture. It's just something I made on a Word document with all of her subjects listed, and I'll just go in as I grade that night of whatever she did that day. I'll grade her work, write down if she's got any corrections to do, and then I'll write down whatever her next lesson, her next page will be. So typically I'm only planning 1 day, maybe 2 in advance, maybe 3, depending on the subject. But really I don't go beyond that, because I find that it sets us up for failure, because I know, and just in life in general, how many times do you plan something to go a certain way and it doesn't go that way? I mean, life is just not that way usually. And homeschooling is no different. So not planning too far in advance, again, was really freeing for me. It saved me a lot of time, first of all, of sitting down and lesson planning, but especially when I was lesson planning and using my time and effort to do those plans, only to have them be, you know, thrown awry anyway, where I'd have to go back and redo them. So that's just kind of something I think if you are finding that happens to you where you feel like you're behind all the time because you're not keeping up with where you thought you would be, I would recommend not planning any more in advance than a week. Even that, like I said, even a couple days for me is like max, but at most, I would say not to plan more than a week in advance, and that will really help you to feel like you're not always playing catch up if you can't do exactly what you thought you were going to be doing on any given day. My third tip is kind of tied into the second one about not planning too far in advance, but it's also making sure that when you are planning, that you're looking at your week and your month consistently, your calendar. What appointments do you have? Are there lessons in the middle of the day? And things are still going to come up that aren't planned, but definitely, you know, if you're doing lesson plans and not looking at your calendar of where you need to be and responsibilities that you have, you're setting yourself up for failure because maybe you have, you know, all the day's work planned out, and maybe you didn't even plan it that far in advance. Maybe you just planned it the night before, but then you forgot that there's a dentist appointment at 2 o'clock or one of your kids has swim practice. So making sure that you have your life calendar near wherever you're doing your homeschooling planning is really important, and make sure you kind of glance at that every single time before you write down an assignment that your child needs to do or a project that you want them to do. You're constantly looking at that weekly and monthly calendar to make sure that you're fitting things in where you have time and also fitting life in where it's going to happen anyway. So those two tips are kind of tied in together. My fourth tip when it comes to setting a homeschool routine or a homeschool flow that works for you is optimize your child's and your energy levels and attention span. So this is something that I find, and I've, especially as my kids have gotten older and I've homeschooled longer, I've realized that, you know, we talk so much about the student and, you know, curriculum that works for them and a schedule that works for them, but I have found that really the success of my homeschool really is dependent on me, my mental state, my energy levels, my abilities, my flexibility, you know, all these things really are dependent on me. And since I am the one that is primarily in charge of making sure that she has her curriculum and she's got all of her things that she needs to be successful, I need to make sure that the things that she needs my help with, those things can be done in times when I am less distracted, I have more time, I have more energy. So I'm not gonna wait till late in the day to help her with subjects that I need to help her with. So usually right before lunch or right after lunch is when I will do things with her, either go over corrections, we'll do any subjects that I do with her still, or any specific lessons I want to teach her. Those things I schedule earlier in the day so that after I'm done with my part with her, unless she needs like help randomly later, I'm kind of out of school for the day and I can go about putting my mental effort towards things I need to do. Make phone calls, pay bills, go to the gym, clean, whatever I need to do, doctor's appointments, errands, you know, all those things come later, and I'm not trying to, you know, fit both things in at once where I'm gonna get distracted, where I'm like, I'm trying to make a phone call and then she needs help, or I still have to help her with this and I've gotta go here. So using knowing my own schedule, being observant of myself, my own patterns, my own tendencies to wanna do things a certain way, using that and helping that guide me towards a routine that's gonna be successful on my end. Same thing with her. You know, if she really doesn't like doing math. So, you know, it's not something that we try to put off towards the end of the day, because number one, math is a top priority core subject in my opinion, and we try to prioritize that. But also if she waits till late in the day to do it, number one, my mental attention span has already waned by then. And I might be doing something else and then she might need me and I have to kind of like stop what I'm doing and go help her. But also I feel like her energy and attention span is better earlier in the day. So I'm gonna have her do those subjects or those things that she may need my help with, or she may need more mental clarity to do earlier in the day, so that we're kind of matching up our energy and our attention span levels. Does that make any sense? I hope it does. But you kind of have to really be a student of yourself and an observer of your child to know when you are best able to pay attention and focus and dedicate time towards helping them, and when they're going to be able to have the most attention span and energy and all that stuff to be able to do what you're asking them to do. And my last tip for creating a homeschool schedule that works for you is realizing and accepting and being okay with the fact that what used to work in the past doesn't necessarily work all the time. And it certainly doesn't work necessarily between children. Like with my oldest, she had different needs and abilities, and I mean everything. They're different children. So what worked with her in the beginning I thought would work with my youngest. And I learned very quickly that's not true. That's not the way she thinks. That's not the way she operates. So I had to kind of learn with each child what routine would work best for them. And then even beyond that, it's something that's as a matter of like even down to seasons of life for sure. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, if you just had a baby, or maybe you're moving, or you know, something like that, you might have to change what used to work in your old circumstance. I think you'll find that especially as your kids grow up and go through the homeschool years, you'll find, you know, as the length of time they spend doing different subjects changes, or maybe they have special interests where they want to spend a lot more time studying a certain type of subject or a certain skill or something they want to spend a lot of time doing. Well, you have to fit that in somewhere. And so it's probably your old schedule is probably not going to work with your new situation. So you have to really be flexible with homeschooling. And I think if I can impress anything upon you when it comes to homeschooling in general, but especially finding a homeschool routine that works for you, the two main things I think you need the most of with homeschooling is flexibility and grace. Being flexible and able to kind of bob and weave and pivot and turn on a dime when you're homeschooling is so important, and being able to do that and being okay with doing that and giving yourself and your child grace when that's necessary is going to be super helpful. Those are my 5 tips for creating a homeschool schedule that works for you. I hope they were helpful. If it was, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments any tips that you have for things that you've done that have really helped in your homeschool when it comes to setting a schedule or a routine or a flow. I know some people like to be really regimented with like times of the day where you're doing certain things, and if that works for you, that's great. I definitely like to have a lot of flexibility in our homeschool, because to me that's one of the benefits of homeschooling anyway, is to be able to be flexible and make it fit in with your life and not have to let it dictate, you know, every single thing you do and all of your time. I want homeschooling and our life to be something that's got synergy. You know, they mesh well in together. They serve each other well, and it's not like two things that are clashing. It's really important to me, and that's one reason why I feel like we have a lot of peace in our homeschooling journey, because I'm not super strict about, you know, schedules and routines. I like to have a flow instead of like a set schedule. So I hope this was helpful, and I would love to hear any tips that you guys have. I will also try to remember to link my homeschooling playlist. There's over like 200 videos in that playlist, all about curriculum choices and curriculum reviews, and there's a couple homeschool room tours from over the years. So make sure you check that playlist out. There's tons of videos there that I think will be really helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.